morning, and we are going to continue with section 3.2, word phrases and algebraic expressions. But first, what did one chip say to another? Hey, let's go for a dip. And what is the favorite cookie that birds like to eat? Well, they really just love eating chocolate chip cookies. It's their very favorite. What we're working on today is laying the foundation for translating from English into algebra. One of the most important uses of algebra is to take real-world situations, put it into a mathematical format, into an algebraic format, and be able to come up with a solution to what our question is. Before we're able to do that, we have to be able to take from English and translate into algebra. Just like if you want to speak to someone who only speaks Spanish, you have to translate your English, or whatever your native language is, into Spanish. So we have to be able to translate from English into the language of math. So here are just 15 possible indications of how you increase a number, you decrease a number, you change it somehow, mathematical operations that can be performed on numbers. We're just going to go through these very quickly and say, well, what are we talking about here? Obviously, if you see times, 9 times a number, we're multiplying. We're counting that number 9 times, the number plus the number plus the number, 9 times the number. What is less? If we say that there are less cookies in this bag than there are in this one, less means that you have fewer. It indicates that you have the concept of subtraction that you're dealing with. Quotient. This is one that a lot of kids have a difficulty remembering what it is. So quotient is the answer to a division problem. If you don't know this, learn it right now. To a division problem. 72 divided by 9 gives us a quotient of 8. If you have a problem and you're trying to translate from English into algebra and it has quotient and you don't know what quotient is, you can't do it. Period. End of story. Sum of course is referring to addition. The sum of 2 and 6, 2 plus 6 is, the sum of 2 and 6, 2 plus 6 would be 8. Twice, if John has twice as many cookies as Susie does, and Susie has 2 cookies, how many cookies does John have? He has 4 cookies because he has twice, or 2 times as many cookies. Divided by, let's see, what could divided by be talking about? Multiplication, right? Well, no. Obviously, something is divided by. We're talking about division. We're talking about splitting up something into more than one group. 10 divided by 5 gives us 2. If we have to divide that into 5 groups, there's going to be 2 groups in each of those 5 groups. More. Are we adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? Well, more. If 2 more than a number is 8, 2 more than a number, you're starting with the number 2, you're starting with the number, you don't know what it is. 2 more than that number is equal to 8. Of course, that would be addition. We have diminished. Diminished means to be made less than, or to shrink. You diminish in stature. Diminish involves the idea of subtraction or reduction. Half. Okay, if you have a choice of having a whole pizza or a half pizza and you're a boy, you're going to want that whole pizza because half has cut it in half. It's been diminished. You only get somebody else can have exactly as much pizza as you do instead of you getting all of it. Difference. What is difference? This is one that you definitely should know, but if you don't, difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. And this is another one that if you are trying to translate from English into math, and you come to this word difference and you think that difference means that we're going to add, you've got a problem. So make sure you know that difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. Obviously, add 2 to the number. You start with the number, you add, addition, plus 2, subtract, minus. Something is decreased. The temperature decreased 10 degrees from yesterday. If yesterday was 70 degrees, what would the temperature be today? It would be 60 degrees because the temperature decreased, was subtracted, shrank, went down 10 degrees, increased. Prices increase, it seems, day by day. Increases to get bigger. Product. This is one that you definitely should know from looks that I get in class. I'm not sure you do. Product is the answer to a multiplication problem. Answer to a multiplication problem. And when you're multiplying two quantities together, let's say that we have 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Now first let me turn around and see if we actually see that. I think we do. 2 times 3 is equal to 6. The 6 is the product. What is it that we're multiplying together? The 2 is not called the product. My hand has a mind of its own. The 2 and the 3 are called factors. And you will definitely see the word factor when you're translating from English into algebra. Now, are these the only possible vocabulary words that you'll be using that indicate operations or manipulations of a given quantity? Well, no, of course not. There are any number of additional ways of describing something, some mathematical operation or an algebraic operation, but this is a good start to some of them. So make sure that you are familiar, well familiar with all of these. We have just a very brief couple of examples here. This says the sum of n and 4. How would you write that? Well, we have n and we have 4. We're asked to do the sum of n and 4. What is sum? Sum is the solution to an addition problem. So we're going to add those together. N plus 4 is the sum of n and 4. If n were 2, let's say let n equal 2. Then the sum of n and 4 would be 2 plus 4, which would be 6. So it makes sense. This is the sum of 2 plus 4. If the number is 2, the sum is 6. So this is how you do the sum of a number plus 4. How about the difference between a number and 5? As a general rule, what comes first in your English sentence is going to come first in your mathematical sentence. Always? No, but as a general rule, yes. The difference between a number and 5. What does difference mean? Difference means subtraction. So this is the difference between a number and 5. You would indicate that with n minus 5. Now we have 1/3 of a number. Of is a word that I'm surprised they didn't have on the list, and I didn't think of it immediately. Of means multiplication. We're like 1/3 of a number. We're going to split it up into 3 parts. So this would be 1/3 of a number times n. 1/3 times n. But remember, when we have our number bumped right up against the letter, that means multiplication. So 1/3 of a number, 1/3 n. Okay. Now I have a couple more of these that I would like to do. And I have the sum of 3. So we have the sum of 3 and 8 times a number. Okay, well, let's see what we have going on here. Several things going on. We have two written out numbers, 3 and 8. We have and, which indicates addition. We have times, which indicates subtraction. We have a number, which indicates our variable. So we have 3, 8, n. We have 3, 8, n, which I'm going to call the number. We have and we have times, which is multiplication. So how are we going to put this together? Well, remember, even in the back of your mind, you should be thinking order of operation, multiplication, or addition first. It's going to be 8 times a number. So we have 8 times a number, 8n. 3 and 3 plus. So we have 3 and is plus 8 times a number. The sum of 3 and a number. These come very naturally to a few people. To a lot of people you have to work at it and think about it and play around with them. But just like the more you practice Spanish, the more you practice ASL, the more you practice German, whatever language, the more you practice English, the better you become at it. The more you practice using the language of mathematics, the easier it will be for you to get to translate from English into mathematics. You know. The next one that I would like to do, this is example 6. 8 more than 3 times a number. I want to show this 2 different ways. This is 8 more than 3 times a number. And I'm going to be pretty picky on this. Now we know that addition is commutative, which means that when you have the sum of 2 numbers, it doesn't matter in which order those two those 2 numbers are added. However, subtraction is not commutative. 3 minus 5 is not the same as 5 minus 3. Division is not commutative. 4 divided by 2 is not the same. Oh my goodness. Excuse me. 4 divided by 2 is not the same as 2 divided by 4. So let's look at this and see, what are we beginning with? 8 more than 3 times a number. What do we have to start? What are we comparing to? Well, we're starting with 3 times a number. 3 times a number plus 8. 8 more than 3 times a number. Whenever you have more than or less than, you can almost write this in reverse. 8 more than 3 times a number. You have to be thinking, what am I starting with? What's my initial quantity? What I have at first is 3 times a number, and it's going to be 8 more than what I have at the beginning. Be careful with these, because remember I said the majority of the time, the order in which you read your sentences in English is going to be the same order in which you write your algebraic statement. In this case, it's not, because the beginning quantity, your initial quantity, which is 3 times a number, is here at the very back of the statement. Now we have, for example, number 7. This is a little bit longer, and I'm going to let you read this in your book along with me. It's page 91. The quotient of the difference of a number and 8 and twice the number. Let n represent the number. Okay, so we're going to say, let n equal the number. When you're working with these problems, and they have more than just 1 or 2 things in them, just take it a little piece at a time. Don't try and automatically lump everything together and write it. You can tend to get frustrated that way, but let's see what we have. The quotient of What does quotient mean? Quotient means the answer to a division problem. Quotient is also what you have when you have something that is written in the form of a fraction. This is a quotient. This is one number divided by another number. If we had 4 over 2, that's the same as 2, which is a quotient. So a lot of the time in your algebraic statements, when they talk about quotient, they're going to be talking about something that's in the form of what we call a rational expression, where you have the numerator divided by a denominator, which is what you recognize now as being a fraction. So we have the quotient of, it's saying, we're going to have something here that looks like a fraction. Well, does it say, well, the numerator is? No, it doesn't. It says the quotient of the difference of a number and 8. What is difference? Difference is subtraction. The difference of a number and 8. This is the difference of a number and 8. And twice the number. 2 times the number. The way that we have this set up here is the quotient of, we have the fraction here, which means we're going to divide. And the difference of a number and 8 and twice the number. So that's how you solve that one. One last one. This is example number 8. The opposite of the reciprocal of the square of a number. Let S be the number. So what is the reciprocal of a number? It's that number written in fraction form turned upside down. Because a number multiplied by its reciprocal is always equal to 1. Now what is the square of a number? Well, the square of a number indicates to us that you are using that number as a factor twice. And you indicate it by using an exponent. So if the number is S, let S be the number. What's the square of the number? S squared. This little exponent here means that we are going to use S, whatever that number is, 2 times as a factor. Well, what does this say? This says the opposite of the reciprocal of the square of a number. Here we have the square of a number, which we can write so that it looks like a fraction as if S squared over 1. What's the reciprocal of S squared over 1? Well, you turn that fraction on its head, and you have 1 over S squared. Now what does it say? It says the opposite of the reciprocal, this is the reciprocal of the square of the number. The opposite of means negative. The opposite of 4 is a negative 4. It's in the opposite side of the number line. So if we have the reciprocal of the square of a number, its opposite is simply negative. Is simply negative 1 over S squared. When you're working on these problems, I want you to play around with all of them. The more you practice translating from English into algebra, the more quickly you'll become fluent in the language of math. Thank you.